Our second assignment is going to be Quantitative Methods, Detailed Research Critique. Our first assignment, we investigated several journals, produced information about those journals. We acquired a few articles and did annotated bibliographies. And if you recall, those annotated bibliographies were really intended to be very short. Maybe a paragraph or two detailing what we saw there, what was useful for us to come back to later, and just so that we didn't have to read the entire article over again to know what it was about. This time we're going to be taking a very deep dive into one article. This assignment is going to start off, you're going to select 3 quantitative research articles in your field that are from current flagship peer-reviewed journals. So several of the journals that you had, most of us all had peer-reviewed journals in our last assignment. So you're going to be looking at those really quality journals and selecting some research from them. Also, it's okay to go the other way around. It's okay to look for a good article and make sure it's from a peer-reviewed journal. If it's not, it was just not acceptable for this assignment. So go through, select your 3 articles, read the abstract, read the major sections, and you can kind of go through relatively quickly. You don't have to do a detailed investigation of the 3, but the goal is you're finding a really good quality article that should meet some of the elements of this research critique. The article should have, of course, the sections like introduction, literature review, method section, results, etc., discussion section. Now, for each of those 3, you're going to provide the journal information as you did in the first assignment, and you'll give me an APA-style reference for each one of those journals. So you'll be citing all 3 of them. You will not be doing 3 critiques. You're only doing 1 critique. The idea here is that you've gone through, you've done a cursory review of those 3 articles. Now you're going to pick the best of those articles that you think can comprehensively respond to the elements that I have listed in this paper, in this assignment. So let's take a look at what those elements are. There's 12 elements in total, but some of them have multiple questions. We don't have to necessarily have a response to every one of the sub-questions. I do expect you to have generally a response to each one of the 12, saying something meaningful each one of the 12. So the first element is, what are the major themes of the literature review and how are they synthesized? Give us a paragraph or so on that. I don't want to see 2 pages of rehashing of their literature review, but your comments on it. Identify the hypothesis. What is the significance of the research? Discuss how the authors provided background to understand where this study fits in. If you just answered one of those questions succinctly, that's fine. You can answer all 3, but you can answer one of those elements in there. For section 3, the element 3, describe the experimental units. Who are the participants? Are they adequately described? So I want you to go through and define the sample, the population, the participants, what were the selection procedures, and the sampling techniques that they used. Next, we're talking about identifying the independent, dependent variable and other controls or moderators that they used. Let me know if they operationally defined their variables. Are there variables are there variables under investigation that were really important in your field? So you might note that this was a dependent variable that's critical in your field. So each one of these may have several sections. Answer them to the best that you can as you go through. So they may not have all of these elements. For example, in 5, how was variance controlled? Discuss what threats could exist to internal and external validity. They may not discuss those threats. As a matter of fact, often they won't, but you should be able to discuss some of those threats. And how was variance controlled? Well, you should be able to go through and determine things like, did they randomly assign? What types of, statistical adjustments that they may have done. Continue on some of the elements, describe the instrumentation that they used. What measures are they using? Are they appropriate? Here I have a mention are psychometric details provided. That is, do they mention reliability and validity? We're going to talk more about that in a couple more lectures, but for now, just give us a cursory idea of whether or not they gave and provided some of those issues about the reliability and validity of the instruments that they're using. Describe how the study was conducted. I'd like to see you provide a design diagram for one of the research questions. It doesn't have to be for all of them. Just pick one of the research questions if they have several, and give us some of those symbols and the design structure for their research question. They probably did not do that. Matter of fact, you rarely ever see something like that in a research article. That's more for the researcher as you go through. Describe the treatment and indicate whether the authors provide sufficient information. If this is a correlational study, you may have not a treatment, but you may discuss the relationships. Are data appropriate for addressing the research problem? Well, the research problem, the data, the analysis, and the conclusion should all be linked together. So a comment or two there. Identify relevant results and conclusions. Does the analytical procedure or quantitative methods match the methodology described? Are the results well organized? That's meaningful. Do the results follow from the analysis? Describe how the results are discussed in relation to previous studies. And then finally, is it appropriate to generalize this research, and are there limitations? So I just kind of read through those to you. There's 12 points here. A successful paper will give a good, solid critique of most of those elements. If one of them is missed, for example, if you've gone through and you don't see anything in regards to the psychometric details, that's okay. But what I do expect you to do is make an attempt to reasonably find and critique these elements, because these are the elements that you would include in your paper as you go through and you think about as you go through your research ideas that you're thinking of presenting toward the end of the semester. This review, as you review other people's papers, you should be thinking how this should apply to your paper. And coming back to what we need to do for this assignment, we are producing a comprehensive narrative. Like I said, 5 to 7 double-spaced pages is appropriate. Feel free to make any additional comments or critiques that are not listed below. When appropriate, make sure you're citing correctly. You can cite a page number if you want to specify a comment in the article, and use APA style throughout. You can just provide me a link to the article instead of providing the actual article. The only exception is if you got it from outside the GW library system. If it's not available through that, then just through Blackboard, you'll also post an electronic copy. You can post your assignment more than once. So if you had a problem with your assignment, you can repost that assignment, and you can also post an electronic copy of your article. Just a few things, just as you go through as an example. What I try to do is I try to think, as I'm posting these videos, I try to think of questions that have come up or might come up. Of course, if you have more questions, please send me an email. But so, for example, a good example is the hypothesis tested. If they don't specifically have a hypothesis or a research question, provide one for them. So you're going to go through, read the article, and know what the variables are. You should be able to provide a good quality hypothesis or point to where they have one. And again, send me questions if you have questions about this assignment. Please send them through email, but hopefully you've gone through and listened to this video. If not, what I'll do is I'll just point you back to this video if I think that's answered in this video. All right, take care, and we will have about 2 weeks to work on this.